Good morning. My name is David Okun. Thank you so much for your support, for subscribing to my channel, sharing, and participating to leave a comment and giving your support, positive feedback. We are still a small channel, and we have been talking about the cost of living. The reason for the cost of living is because we live in a world where the cost of living has become a major problem, and everywhere you go, there is a problem to do with the cost of living. In the developed world, in the developing world, and we also live in a globalized world. So any problem happening in one country impact similarly in another country. And we also, in different countries, we practice something called capitalism. It's an economic system which is the government is actually operating economic of capitalism across the globe, within the European Union, within the UK, America, developed world, developing countries. It is global, and capitalism operates something called the market economy, marketization of the economy, which actually houses the market, actually houses the private sector and also the public sector. That's it. The public sector actually operates businesses, private and public business. Public businesses are run by the state, by the government, and private businesses are run by private individuals, mostly multimillionaires and multi-billionaires. Small and medium businesses can be run by ordinary people who work for a living, the middle class and the lower class, mostly running small and medium businesses. All of them need something actually of functions within the principle of freedom. There's something called free enterprise. Enterprise means the heart of doing business. Basically, it means business competence, business behavior. There's something called free enterprise, and this is promoted by the government. Free enterprise embodies the idea of freedom of individuals. Individual freedom means the government is no longer running your life. You run your life, you're responsible for your life. And so these concepts are applied to promote the market system, the free enterprising economic system. Basically, business people are actually free of government control. Government controls society by law, enacting laws in parliament. Some laws are sometimes called legislation. So laws or legislations are actually used to regulate society. The attitude of the government at the present moment is to deregulate the businesses, the business system, the market. Deregulate. The regulation means it doesn't actually regulate it. It actually doesn't control how the market operates. Now, the problem with freedom in the market, like especially in free enterprise, which is actually achieved by the government not regulating the market, is that the people who are running private businesses should be responsible. We should be able to depend on them as society, such that when there is the crisis of the cost of living, we would expect wealthy people who are running private companies to help people who cannot help themselves. That's it, the government normally do. Now, this is not happening, and the government's expectation or non-expectation for the private enterprises, private businesses intervening in the economy to help people who cannot help themselves. This expectation or lack of it has created the cost of living all over the globe. Like I said, privatization of the economy or the marketization of the economic system of capitalism is global, And that's why there is the cost of living. The fundamental reason why there is the cost of living is the government not regulating the economy. Even it does in favor of the private businesses, which are actually corporate. Corporate businesses are actually rich businesses owned by rich people, run by rich people also, like the CEOs, directors, and other technocrats. Normally, in big cities and industrial regions, or in big commercial, financial cities, or industrial cities of the world. And this is why it's a problem, because when you are to promote the free enterprises, you are also supposed to close down the public sector as by default. That's what has happened. What has been happening also globally. The government has been shutting down the public sector in order to promote free enterprise. What that means in practice is that people who used to depend on the government for help can no longer get help from the government. The majority, over 90% of the population, cannot access food, energy, employment, and healthcare, education, public transport, housing, and all these other things. Access to opportunities, like if you want to invest, getting grants, that is no longer available, because for the government to provide public sector, it has to tax and borrow. That's the primary source of funding for the public sector. Public sector produces public services. Private sector provide private services. Like if you go to the supermarket, you buy things that is private businesses, you buy a property on the market. It does not provide public housing. It doesn't actually subsidize the economy of food, energy. The reason there is a problem with energy costs, because the government is no longer intervening to support affordability of energy or food or all the other necessity, essential. The government also has failed to provide public services. That is, we're going to look at the 2007-2008 financial crisis in America, which was caused by the U.S. government failing to provide housing for people who need help. And these are normally the majority, the population, 80%, 90%. Because money under capitalism is concentrated in the hands of the few 5 or 10%, and not the many 90 or 70%. And this information is vital, because there is an idea that now every individual in a country should take responsibility for their lives. And that means the government is no longer helping you. Whatever help is remaining within your area, whether you're in the UK where I live, whether in Europe or the developed world or anywhere, whatever help the government has is little, it's only symbolic. And also in terms of practice, getting those help are impossible. Healthcare now in a country like the United Kingdom or America, in the United Kingdom, the waiting time for treatment or even accessing the GP is now impossible. You phone the GP's office for appointment, you don't get it, because you phone somebody, you wait for almost an hour, and a reception is not even somebody with health experience. They're gonna tell you they don't have appointments anymore. And if you ask them, when can you book an appointment? So we don't pre-book appointments. So if you don't pre-book appointment, which means I'll keep phoning every day and you're telling me there is no appointment. And this is in the morning, like 10 o'clock, and I think the time is from 10 o'clock in the morning. You're phoning the hospital, and they're saying they have run out of appointments. I mean, it's not even midday. Where has the appointment gone? Because there are no doctors. That's the bottom line. Because most appointments are actually with the doctors, and most prescriptions are actually done by the doctors. And most vital services provided in the hospital actually done by the doctor. And so that there is no doctor because the government has to manage the health service by operating in public sector. Public sector put money into the economy for people who need support, people who are actually poor. And poor people are actually, like I said previously, people on low income, on minimum wage, on the lower and the middle class, who are workers. And we need to understand this. And it's going to get worse and worse. So the purpose for this exercise is for, people to take responsibility for their lives. And if you have a problem, you need to study the problem, understand it, be an expert on the cost of living, be an expert on poverty. If you are working for a living, there are people who do not work for a living necessarily. They are millionaires and multi-billionaires. They still work, but they don't need to work to survive. If you have to work to survive, then you can actually consider yourself poor. You can consider yourself a victim of government cuts or even closure of the public sector. That means you're going to be excluded from everything, including water. You can't drink water. I mean, you can't cook, you can't have energy, you can't eat, you can't heat your home. You can't do anything, you're going to die. That is, where is it we are going? It may not look like that now, but if you start learning what is going on, going forward, because, we are not going to increase the public sector, we are actually closing it down. And the government may tell you that the private sector provide private services. It does not. Right now, the government is giving money to energy companies and water companies, for example. And for these help are actually to be given to those who are struggling financially. They are called discretionary fund. Discretionary fund means the energy and the utility companies decide what to do. You have no right to that help. It is up to them if they have the money. And if they already spent it on something else, then you don't get it. In practice, you don't get the money. If you go to you live in the UK or wherever you live, visit your energy company's website and look for that help. You will never find it. It's hidden. It's not even there actually. They say it is there, but if you try to get it, it is impossible to get it. You just don't get it. If you get it, it's luck, like going to play lottery. That is not how to provide public service to the country. So the conclusion is that the public service is gone. And this is why today I'm going to talk about the financial crash in America, which took place in 2007 and 2008. And this is what this series of video is. Watch this video, watch the other one as well. They are connected. And leave a comment below and subscribe to my channel if you like the video. Leave a comment and link in notification bell for new videos. And you may or may not really enjoy this video, but it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to know what is going on in the country, in your life, and it is your responsibility to plan your life. What are you going to do? If there is a problem, what are you going to do about it? Start asking yourself that. This is basic education. Ask yourself about this. You're sick, you're depressed, you're struggling with children, tuition fee, you're struggling with the children going to university, the cost of university. Instead of grants, the government is giving student finance. I think that is wrong. That is a sign the government is no longer interested in helping young people to access education. A lot of children are now not going to school because they don't want to be in debt. So they are right. Why should they be in debt? in a rich country like Britain, in a rich country like America. So the government is doing the wrong thing, because with so much wealth, you can't just be piling more money into the air and the fuel for one, and excluding 90% or even 80 or 90%. One person being excluded is one person too many. Imagine the majority of the population across the globe under capitalism, without the public sector, are being excluded from everything. Education is an example. You cannot send your child to education, but young people are now not wanting to go to university. They don't want to be in debt. The government should give grants. The government should also do something else about education. They should subsidize education so that instead of paying 10,000 or even more going up, we should pay tuition fee maybe £2,000 and £3,000, which means it's really subsidized, and it should be provided by the public sector. The private sector can operate to provide private services, including education and health, and maybe also supplying food and energy to rich people. There should be two types of economy: public sector. Public sector, which are actually provided by the private companies using their money, and they sell it at the market rate to the rich. Things like pension, I don't see why millionaires and multi-billionaires should get pension. There should be a policy where they pay national insurance number. No, national insurance contribution. They pay tax. But if you're a millionaire and multi-billionaire, you should not get pension unless you lose your money. Unless you when you retire, you're no longer a pensioner. And the money should be not given to super rich. Should be given to people who are on the lowest level. And also state pension. I'm talking about the UK, but also should be a policy globally. This policy should be harmonized globally. There's no reason under globalization to insist nation state to insist on evaluation of policies. It brings confusion. I mean, everything should be harmonized. Even in the UK, there is something called localism that should stop in terms of providing public service. We have systems provided differently in Northern Ireland, in Wales. England and Wales at least is similar. Problem in England and Wales also, within local services, you find that within every local authority, the benefit system, the educational system is so different. It's so fragmented. That is not necessary. It's kind of like the government is trying to be very untidy in terms of. Okay, untidy is probably a non-existing description. What the government is trying to do is actually frustrate the public sector, and it is willful, it's deliberate. It just confuses everything, makes it really complex, makes it impossible to access, because they cannot tell, they don't have the courage to tell the British people or the citizens of the world that they no longer want to provide public service. The reason for that is that the government said to us they are going to run the country on our behalf. So it is in contradiction that people who are not privileged, who are not well rewarded by wealth and power in this country, should certainly be left without help. The government took away our land globally. When I say our land, I mean we are humans. You may think of yourself as American or German or European or whoever you think you are an African, or in Africa there are 54 countries. You think you are a nation, but in the end we are humans, and this world is ours. We should share it. That's the bottom line. The reason we have national boundaries, the government created that. World government created national boundaries for reasons known to them, and national boundary is bad enough. It is even worse that you go to one country and you think you're in another planet in terms of in law, in terms of policy, in terms of services. This should change. If we are to talk about globalization, then we need to talk about globalization. You see, there is no point if you are an African, you can't come to Europe. You have to really be smuggled in a port. What kind of globalization is that? What kind of European Union is that? If you're in Europe, what kind of progress is that? People can't travel freely. I mean, if you need to tighten the law, do it. I mean, if there is crime, deal with crime. It has nothing to do with immigration. I mean, Africans or even Americans are no more criminals than the British or the Europeans. You can't mix policy up because you are confused and you are. I don't think the government probably is confused. I mean, I want to say the government ministers and prime ministers, presidents, head of state. Maybe they are confused. That is their issue. But they are definitely confusing. You know, I know we talk different language, but we speak English. I'm from Africa. I was born in Africa. I speak an African English. So there's nothing wrong with that. African people in their respective worlds who speak African French or African or French, whatever, or Chinese French, whatever. They talk about that. They use those kind of languages. And we have a world. And I'm coming back to what I'm trying to say to everybody who is listening to me, wherever you are in the world. You need to be prepared. You need to understand what is going on. Ignorance is not a source of credit. Nobody's going to really, oh, thank you so much for being ignorant, not knowing anything. And if you don't pay attention to the facts on the ground, I mean, how can we live in a life in the cost of living? We live a life in different issues, terrorism. You know, there are wars everywhere. You go in Ukraine. What is happening in Ukraine? Why is Russia fighting Ukraine? We, members of the global world, we should ask questions. We need to understand what's going on in our world. We need to know why in Britain, America, or in Europe, or Africa, why has the government taken away our lands? We do not own land. Everything, food, energy, housing comes from the land. The government took away our land and say, okay, we didn't actually take away your land. You are just trying to look after your land. We're trying to look after your, and then we're going to look after you. Now it's turning around to say, we don't want to look after you anymore. They have given our land to the super rich, which is actually the 5 or 10%. Given our wealth away. What is left? I don't know where they have put our wealth. And now they're turning back to us with empty hands. And no, you look after yourself. Find your way in the world. That is actually a form of robbery. They may not call it like that. But if you think carefully, how can you take away the land of the British people, American people, Europeans? You as state, you took away the land. You take away somebody's land. You create a state of affair of a dispossession. If you take the land, you take everything. Because gold, diamonds, wealth, money, food, energy, medicine come from herbs, from plants. The people used to have these skills. That is why the trees are there. Trees are actually a source of medicine. The fruits are a source of food. And if we are lucky, we can get maybe some meat from the land also. Wild animals, antelope, you name them. Pork. But we have domestic animals also, like cattle. We get beef from that. We get pork from pig. We get chicken from chicken. So nature and the world is enough. It is the violence which is creating problems, and this is why I'm talking about this. I want people to understand this. What is going on? What's going on in your home? If you have a mental illness, if you have a physical illness, what is your life like? Ask this question, make an effort, never give up hope, and do something about it. We have access to the internet, we have a lot of library. You do your best to do a study. Use social media, like you're watching videos, learn and learn, be an expert on the cost of living, on everything which costs money or which potentially could cost your life. And then design a plan. What are you going to do? Always, have a plan. What are you going to do about the situation? Because the government is supposed to do that. The government is supposed to understand what is going on in the country. The government has abandoned society, you and I. It doesn't look after the rich. The rich can look after themselves because they can buy something. They can hire experts. They can hire lawyers, doctors, accountants. We ordinary people cannot, because they don't have money. So the government should have been doing that. The government has stopped doing that because they have shut down the public sector. The private sector doesn't provide public service. That is a situation we have. That is the state of affairs. We need to understand this and design a plan. Instead of waiting for the government, design a plan for your life. And then follow those plans as much as, even if you implement only one item, if you have 10 items of the plan, even if you only implement one aspect of it in 5 years, in 1 year, in 1 month, is better. Do something, and assess your life. What have you achieved in a year? You have to evaluate. You have to really look at your life. What have you achieved with your plan in terms of the cost of living? What did you create jobs? Did you enter into self-employment even if you are a pensioner? Is there something you like doing which you can turn into a business? Do you like talking? Do you like, I don't know if you like fighting. Fighting is unlawful. It's illegal. Anything which is legal, which you enjoy doing, painting, photography, even if you're a pensioner, because you need money, can you turn that into business? Can you get information? Can you do a research? Can you write business plans? And also, can you do a short study or long study, a medium study? It is your life, and it is always refreshing. About your physical and mental health, fitness, and things like that. How is your life? And that's why this is the logic about it. So let's look quickly about what happened in America, because it directly actually relates to the problem we are facing now with the cost of living. And I'm actually suggesting that it is the financial crisis in America has been a primary source of the cost of living. So if more people really are doing a study on it, and it's part of the environment of what we are experiencing. So it's really important for you and I to learn about it. That's why I'm talking about it. So it affected everybody, like I said in the other videos. And the emerging countries, the countries which are actually developed, emerging countries are countries who are still developing. They have like Africa, like Asia, places like China. China is the second largest economy in the world. India, United States, these are developed countries. Example of the developed country. So it impacted all these countries: the European Union, Indonesia, Turkey, Japan, Germany, Russia, Brazil, South Korea, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, United Kingdom, France, Nigeria, Canada, Iran, Philippines, and Thailand. These are some of the largest economies contributing to the global GDP in the world. And we can actually look at these countries and see how they were impacted, because what happened previously can happen again. It is happening again. That's why I'm looking. The financial crisis. The financial crisis in America happened because government failed provide housing, he resorted to using the market system, which failed and created a major financial problem. The problem with prices is that every time it happens, super rich actually benefit from it financially. They make huge sums of money. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy to create prices by the rich, colluding with the government, but that would be too far-fetched. But I'm saying that, it is very easy if something makes you money to be complacent, to be, sometimes you fail to take responsibility for that. And, not be truthful, try to cover up, because, we know some people who are red state and things like that. I've said that in the other videos. So the Federal Reserve, for example, raised the federal funds rate, causing an inverted yield curve to slow inflation and get prices and commodity prices down. That usually puts the economy into a recession. So the Federal Reserve took steps to try and address the problem in America at that time. So part of the thing it did, it actually raised the federal funds rate, causing an inverted yield curve to slow inflation. Inflation is when the Federal Reserve think there is an increase in money supply. Money supply is caused by high prices. Like now, we are suffering from inflation because of high prices of food, energy, commodity prices have gone up. And so when you talk about the Federal Reserve, actually the American Central Bank, an equivalent of the Bank of England and maybe other central banks around the world. So it raised the Federal Reserve Fund rate, causing an inverted yield curve, a slow inflation. Inverted yield is when you generate some productivity. So probably if the curve is inverted, it means there's a reduction. And if the economy is slowed, when we talk of federal funds rate, probably rate of borrowing, because the economy, the modern economy, depend on borrowing. They always borrow money. This is the credit system. So this probably they'll talk about interest rate, because if you raise the interest rate, then people borrow less. The cost of borrowing goes up with higher interest rate. That will actually control the supply of money, the flow of money into the economy. When the economy, the government is trying to control inflation. So central bank is independent of the government. Federal Reserve actually is a private bank. The way I understand it, most people think it's actually owned by the government. So get the prices, the commodity prices down. So when you get prices down, you actually control inflation. That usually puts the economy into a recession. That is what Rishi Sunak is doing. And we are on the verge of a recession. Recession actually was what created a major problem in 2007 and 2008, causing the global economic meltdown. 30-year mortgage average, treasury bond within 30 years, 10 years, 2 years, effective federal fund rate, CPI, inflation year per year, recession. These are some of the terminologies you should be familiar with. Terminologies like subprime crisis, subprime mortgages. We discussed that in the other videos. If you're looking at background information, subprime crisis, the impact, timeline, subprime mortgage crisis, solutions, debate, indirect economic effects of the subprime mortgage crisis, Great Recession, and inverted yield curve. These are some of the topics. While the causes of the bubble and subsequent crash are disputed, the precipitating factor for the financial crisis of 2008 and 2008 was the bursting of the United States housing bubble and the subsequent subprime mortgage crisis, which occurred due to a high default rate and resulting foreclosures of mortgages, mortgage loans, and particularly adjustable rate mortgages. So, while the causes of the bubble and the subsequent crash are disputed, and which means nobody seems to know what caused the bubble and the subsequent crash. And when you talk about the bubble, things are getting chaotic and getting out of control, and nobody knows what caused it. There are people actually agreeing, but these are experts. The predicting factor for the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008 was the bursting of the United States housing bubble. So when something bubbles, it bursts. It's like a football. You overinflate it, it bursts. Now, it's like if there is turbulence, there is turmoil within the economy. It bubbles, it starts bubbling and bursting. It's really within it, the economy getting out of control. Things like, there is too much wealth, for example, in the economy. It just, capitalism operates within a structure. If there is too much wealth, it creates instability. So this is an example of something getting a bubble and bursting. So things begin to crash. Things begin to malfunction, the system failing, and stuff like that. And so in the United States, the house bubble and the subsequent subprime mortgage crisis. Subprime mortgage, which means mortgage of low quality, which are lent to poor people, it actually attracts very high interest rates, which means it actually generates a lot of wealth for the lenders. It's actually a form of exploiting people who are poor credit ratings, like such happened in America with the financial crisis in America in 2007 and 2008. The subprime mortgage crisis was created when people didn't pay back. They lent money to people who could not afford it, and they shouldn't have done that, but they did it because the government told them to do it. And probably they believed the government was going to help them to take that risk. If there was a risk, the government was going to bail them out. Probably that's why the government spent billions and trillions of US dollars to bail private companies. Because the government asked them to take risks which they normally wouldn't take. The market normally wouldn't take. But the government tells you to do something, you do it, because if something goes wrong, the government is responsible and it helps. But in helping, it enriches those who are already multimillionaires and multi-billionaires. And also, at the same time, the government gives billions and trillions to the multi-billionaires during financial crisis or any other crisis. It actually doesn't. It stops giving help to people who need it. So it makes what problem existing, it makes it even worse. The housing crisis. All the government should have done in America was take money, set up a public infrastructure, provide public housing, period. It created this problem and nothing happened. The government wasn't panicked. The people who created the problem with the government, the financial crisis, were rewarded financially. They were given millions, billions and trillions of taxpayers' money. This money being given to people who, it's like it creates a crisis and transfer billions and trillions from the government money to the multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires who put it into their pocket. Because, you know, any money given to a private company, big corporation, is actually is invested in capital and infrastructure. Something called recapitalization. Recapitalizing the economy, especially giving it prices. And this capital is wealth. This wealth goes in is the private wealth. It's transferring money from public to private for free in the name of solving a crisis they created. Which was, as I said, these are people who are supposed to be very clever. And so this, which occurred due to the high default rate, default rate means people are not paying back the money they borrowed, and there were a lot of them. And the foreclosure means actually they take back their property. You bought, poor people bought property using a fake credit system which didn't work, and poor people were actually punished again because they lost their homes. They became homeless. They bought property. The government misled them to buy property, and when the market failed, the government with the private companies took back their property. So poor people became homeless, but because there is a crisis, the government cannot spend public money to solve public service issues like housing, like homelessness. So I don't know where those people were. Maybe they were taken to concentration camp or something like that. Because if the government cannot house them, and the economy has been crushed, has been destroyed, the problem got worse. And what are you going to do? Some or all of the following factors contributed to the crisis. That is a proposition. So in its January 2011 report, the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, FCIC, the Committee of U.S. Congressmen, concluded that the financial crisis was avoidable and was caused by widespread failures in financial resolution and supervision, including the Federal Reserve's failure to stem the tide of toxic assets. Toxic assets are actually fake assets based on credit. This is which doesn't work. And when you talk about financial regulation, like I said before, financial regulation is an arrangement under capitalism because there's a belief that the market should be free of the government interference. That is a capitalistic belief, and it centers around the idea of freedom. Mainly the conservatives of the world promote that proposition, those beliefs. And it doesn't work when there are poor people, so many poor people in your country, because poverty is a barrier to freedom. You cannot be free if you're poor, at least in terms of development, because you can't develop economically if you're poor. Simple as that. You work, and you are taxed and taxed and taxed. You remain poor. They took toxic assets, and then they took supervision. The government to provide, but that is an irrelevance. The government no longer, because it defeats the purpose of capitalism. And so the government and the governance and risk management and many systematically important financial institutions, including too many financial firms acting recklessly and taking too much risk. These risks were actually the government asked them to take risks, so they cannot be accused in that way. But there was a collusion between, in my opinion, there's a collusion between the state and big business to create all these problems. It's an excuse to avoid providing public service. Because the agenda, the political agenda, is not to actually promote public sector. It's close it down, like I said at the beginning of this video. is global. America is the mother and father of capitalism. So what happens in the world actually originates from America. So the creating of this chaos was actually a distraction. The main issue is here the closure of the public sector and failure to provide public service to people who need it. So that's the problem. And people need to know that because they are the majority who are being excluded from the economy. And so we look at this material and a lack of transparency by financial institutions and by households that put the financial system on a collision course with crisis. Okay. The crisis created, in my opinion, willfully actually to destroy public sector because the government has an excuse not to. Every time I believe these people actually set the system up to fail, because you can't just turn around and tell people you're not going to help me anymore. You're closing down the public sector. We're not creating a crisis. The crisis is needed. I believe it's created deliberately to help the public to adjust to the reality. And whether it's the right thing or not, leave a comment below what you think is happening. Because, you need to understand your world, what is going on, a systemic breakdown in accountability and ethics at all levels. Accountability is what we talk about. There's no point for a private company to provide accountability. Accountability is the concept that will belong to the public sector in terms of politics. In terms of business, that is a different thing. They are accountable to themselves, so it's irrelevant in terms of assessing the cost of living as a crisis because of the public sector situation. The private sector is not really involved in the public sector. They're like day and night. They're like aliens meeting humans. You're asking aliens to coexist with humans. You're looking for trouble. The regulation of over-the-counter derivatives, especially credit default swaps. Credit default swap is actually exchanging credit. If the credit is actually bad credit, it's toxic, it's like derivatives is actually a form of credit instrumentation to generate revenue for the private to big corporations mainly. I mean, if you default swap, credit default swap, the credit actually means debt. So you give the bad debt which is actually horrible, you give it to somebody else to buy it, and then you kind of like pay them buying the risk. Look, buying and selling of risk created by the credit system. So the Wall Street and the financial crisis, anatomy of a financial collapse, Levine-Coburn report by the United States Senate concluded that the crisis was the result of high-risk, complex financial products, undisclosed conflict of interest, the failure of regulators and the credit rating agencies, and the market itself to rein in the excesses of Wall Street. The Wall Street and the financial crisis. This is a book, I think, report, an anatomy of financial collapse. So this created a scene of what happened. Levine-Coburn report. Look at that. Leave a comment below if you know anything about this report by the United States Senate. It concluded that the crisis was the result of high risk. You take high risk, like I said before, the government actually told the private sector to take high risk. Yes, complex financial products. A product means actually credit product, the credit of selling and product of buying and selling. In credit, and it's highly complex. This is material I'm looking at. Extremely complex financial product and disclosed conflict of interest. Conflict of interest actually means if you have a conflict of interest, means you are being dishonest or maybe careless about dishonesty. You're acting like a thief. actually could really mean you are a thief, or potential thief, or a thief who could be active or who could really commit crime. So you ignore conflict of interest. I mean, you can eat your cake and you can have your cake and eat when you're doing, business with money, with wealth of the nation. And the market itself to reign in the excesses of Wall Street. Reign means rule. Excesses mean people who are greedy, people who are actually so irresponsible and they're so transfixed on creating wealth. And there is no boundary, there's no respect for wealth. There's no morality to do with it. How you make money is actually it's chaos. It's like a jungle. The high delinquency and default rate by homeowners, particularly those with subprime credit, led to rapid devaluation of mortgages. Backed securities including bundle loans, portfolios, derivatives, and credit default swap. Delinquency. High delinquency. Delinquency means people who do something wrong. They behave like criminals, like lawless people. The people who don't really keep their promises. People who are so, they are so risky. They don't pay. I know they don't keep their promises. If they say I'm going to pay back your money, they don't pay. So the current state of delinquency, and this was high delinquency and default rates. It was really chaotic. Default means they didn't pay. Behaving badly, disrespectful probably is another way to look at it. So these homeowners are paid because these are the ones who were poor and of low quality of education. They couldn't understand the complexity of the market. The government allowed them to borrow money, even if they were not really fit to borrow. And all in the name of avoiding providing public housing. And the government didn't want, the conservative government in America at that time didn't want to give public housing to people because they didn't have it. You can't have public housing if you have shut down the public sector. That's what's happening in the UK now. You can't help people. The government keeps saying you're helping people. You cannot help people when people are actually in poverty. I mean, how long are you going to? Is this going to take to help people? You keep telling us, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. That is not true. It's not true at all, because you want to take. I mean, to get people out of poverty, it takes only 3 months in the UK. With the internet, the technology, just get the money. If the money is there, but they cannot get the money because they cannot tax, they cannot borrow. That's the only way to help. You don't help people with rhetoric, with making promises you don't keep. You say, I'm going to do this thing. Take action and do something. And if you take action and you give, it is really laughable the amount of money being given by the government. It's like the government is really, I think, is playing a game with members of the public, because members of the public have allowed them to do that. That's why I'm saying, go to your MP and tell them what the situation is, what the problem is, what is going on. So you have to learn and be an expert, know what is happening. If you don't want to do that, don't think you're going to get help. When you talk to your MP or somebody at their office, but my suspicion is that the MP office now is defunct. Because you see, to operate an MP's office, you need money. If the government says they are no longer spending on the public sector, even if they want to privatize, probably private companies are the ones running the MP's of member of parliament. which means it doesn't. Private sector cannot run the public sector. People answer because the private sector only they are there to make money for themselves, and they don't even do. They give charity. The charity they give money to is their own charity or their interest. Things like football, like going into space. People like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. They're not going to give you help, money to go to school, to go to the hospital, to buy food, to buy energy. Rich people don't give money like that. They're not there to help. They're not. It's like they're working for a boss who tells them, "Don't help people, otherwise you're going to take away your wealth." Because these people are actually educated not to help anyone, and the government either knows it or is negligent. Because to say, okay, we are going to give public money to energy companies to give to people who need help, is fake. Because the money is kept by the energy company. They don't give to anyone. Because you see, if you have to work 2 to 3 to 4 months to get maybe 50 pounds or 100 pounds, that is no help. And the level of help is laughable, is negligible. Any help being given by the government is laughable. You see? Because you take benefit, for example, benefit should be an equivalent of the minimum wage. Minimum wage should be 30 pounds an hour. And the government only need to pay benefit, nothing else. And if you want to help, like in the UK, buy a house and give to everyone in Britain who work for a living should be given a free. The government is able to build free housing to everyone in the world, especially in Africa. You know, the cost of living in Africa by default of Africa is quite low. Developed world, the rich, the poor would actually give money to the rich governments of Africa, of the rich countries, and also money to Africa to build houses to every African, fully contained property, and also provide food for everyone on the planet. Nobody should be suffering the cost of living. Nobody should suffer food costs. People should not really struggle to get food. Healthy food. Food banks in the UK, for example, should be closed down. And simple as that. You don't need things like that. This is actually an abomination. It's an abuse of the British people. Wherever any government distributing food in an emergency, food aid should be stopped. The government should create a food industry and should recruit local nationals to use modern technology to produce food. And I don't see why food should be sold in the supermarket. That is not needed. Supermarket should close down for selling food. Only sell to the rich. If they want to buy it, if they don't want to buy it, they can come and get free food from food and energy should not be part of the business, private business. It should be public business funded by the government across the globe. One simple policy, and employment should be supported where the private companies cannot afford to pay 30 pounds an hour. For example, in the UK, 30 pounds an hour, it doesn't make you rich, but it gets you out of poverty. If you work full time, if you don't work full time, then the government should give you benefits to top up your income. No one in the developed world should be poor. People are actually suffering poverty because of government negligence, and the government should actually be fired. Government of the West, of the East, government of Africa should be asked to step down. This is not going to happen. We don't have the power to ask the government to leave. And if you want to riot, you go and riot. But I think if you go and start rioting because the government is misbehaving, then you are behaving in the same way or even worse than the government. The government is doing the wrong thing. and because wrong people are actually in government. So what I would say is that if you think you cannot, you're an MP, if you're a politician in any country, if you see that you cannot contribute to eradicating poverty within a year, if you're talking about logistics, let's say 5 years, nobody should be poor anywhere. Actually, food poverty, energy poverty, homelessness should not occur. Access to health should be free at the point of use, at the point of need. This is across the globe, and this is not happening, which means the people who are in government are not fit to be in government. So the challenge for communities, families, communities who are actually victims of incompetence by the government, their responsibility is now to mobilize and identify the kind of people they want to lead in the country. People who cannot deliver, if your MP cannot deliver you out of poverty in 6 months, a consistency should have the right to ask that MP to step down. If a prime minister sits in office for 1 year in Britain and fails to deliver everybody out of poverty, that prime minister should step down. The government should stop existing if it cannot eradicate poverty within 10 years. It should be able to do that, and every private sector in the world should shut down if they cannot support government to eradicate poverty. Poverty is stupid. It's such an insult. There is so much wealth in the world, technology, science, engineering, all the years of our learning. There are so many people who are actually educated and they cannot access good jobs. And if the government says, oh, there is a lot of work, they don't know what they're talking about. Because we are actually entering into an age where technology is taking over society to run the economy. That means employment is going to, human employment is going to be a thing going on. In the military, in the security sector, health sector, education, every sector, financial, the legal. That's why people are going on to the street to demonstrate, because of privatization of public sector, of public transport, of education. All these things are now being starved of funding, and the government is not funding because it's shutting down the public sector, which is not a bad thing. But if you shut down the public sector, you need to put in place a mechanism of providing welfare to even people who work, because people who work are living in poverty. Almost anybody who works for a living is in poverty, and they need to be, they need to get out of poverty, get people out of poverty. And going forward, I will talk about this thing over and over and over. If you like this video, leave a comment below and let me know what you're thinking. And as the value of these assets plummeted, buyers for these securities evaporated, and the banks who were heavily invested in these assets began to experience a liquidity crisis. Utilization allowed for shifting of risk and lax underwriting standards. Many mortgages were bundled together and formed into new financial instruments called mortgage-backed security in a process known as securitization. Securitization is actually guaranteeing credit, and mortgage-backed securities actually lending and borrowing mechanisms to buy a property. These bundles could be sold as ostensibly low risk security, partly because they were often backed by credit default swap insurance. So the bundle could be sold as ostensibly low risk security, partly because, now we're talking about low risk. um, low risk. Yeah, people who can afford. You're selling credit to those who can afford it. So there cannot be a situation of low risk. High risk arises when you actually try to give credit to people who cannot afford it. Simple, other people who are poor. Because mortgage lenders to pass these mortgages and the risk on in this way they could and they adopt loose underwriting criteria. So underwriting is the process of giving credit. You assess risk and you do that. These are actually something called gobbledygook within the financial sector languages. Lax regulation allowed predatory lending in the private sector, especially after the federal government overrode anti-predatory state laws in 2004. So the government willfully distorted the law. They removed barriers to recklessness. They actually legalized lawlessness in operating financial system. The Community Reinvestment Act, CRA, a 1977 U.S. federal law designed to help low and moderate income Americans get mortgage loans, required banks to grant mortgages to high risk families. This is wrong. So this should have been allowed. Grant in 2009. Federal Reserve economists found that only a small portion of subprime mortgage (CRA) rated loans appeared to perform comparably to other types of subprime loans. These findings ran counter to the contention that the CRA contributed in any substantive way to the mortgage crisis. Reckless lending by lenders such as Bank of America's countrywide financial unit was increasingly incentivized and even mandated by government regulation. So there was over enthusiasm, over exuberance in lending, and obviously there is probably also vested interest, because when you give credit, you earn your profit by through interest rates. So this may, of course, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac lose market share and to respond by lowering their own standards. So competition. Mortgage guarantees by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac with the government agency, which purchase many subprime loan securitization. So government set up agencies which mimic private companies, but they were actually a cross between private sector and public sector to implement this. It's supposed to be a creative way of crediting transaction, but it was wrong. The implicit guarantee by the U.S. federal government created a moral hazard and contributed to the glut of risky lending. Government policies that encourage home ownership provided easier access to loans for subprime borrowers. Overvaluation and bundled subprime mortgages based on the theory that housing prices would continue to escalate. Questionable trading practices on behalf of both buyers and sellers. Compensation structured by short-term deals. Compensation structured by banks and mortgage originators that prioritize short-term deal flow over long-term value creation, and lack of adequate capital holding from banks and insurance companies to back financial committees they were running. And the 1999 Gramm-Leach-Bailey Act, which partially repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, effectively removed the separation between investment banks and the depository banks in the United States, and increased speculation on the part of the depository banks. Now, I'm actually going through this material to actually complement the explanation I've already given. So, the credit rating agencies and investors fail to accurately price the financial risk involved with mortgage loan-rated financial products, and governments did not adjust their regulatory practices to address changes in the financial market. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. And like I said, the government has been responsible for so many crises for the simple reason that it does not intervene in the economy in favor of helping those who cannot help. And in the UK, when they intervened recently, they intervened and gave trillions of public money to the energy company. Subscribe to this channel and support it in whatever way you can. Thank you for your attending. Thank you for viewing. Doesn't matter whether you are many or few. We are on our way. We're going to be doing as much as we can to improve every aspect of this exercise. And this channel is not just talking about the cost of living. I'm just talking about the cost of living now because it's relevant, it's of interest, it's important. And when I finish, if when I feel I've done enough talking about the cost of living, then I will be doing something else with the channel. Thank you. See you in the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.